The movie begins with a Medea grandmother on the floor. After the death of her grandmother Linda, grieving teenager Joanna Lawrence visits the grave of her late mother, Chantal Lawrence. Weeping, she tells Chantal that she loves her, then looks at the article about the recent wedding of her wealthy real estate broker father, Michael Lawrence, to a self-made cosmetic line bachelorette, Whitney Hughes. This black girl wearing an American flag, so she already a red flag. At the house party of Michael and Whitney, Whitney goes to the kitchen to get more wine for Michael and her sister Cassandra's cop husband, Terrence. There, Cassandra expresses her disapproval of Whitney marrying Michael 4 months into dating him, saying it's too fast. Whitney agrees that it's too fast, but tells her that she's in love with his eggplant and is not getting any younger. Cassandra asks if she got him to sign the prenup, which she confirms that she did. Okay, we got a Miss Sugar Mama over here. Joanna shows up unannounced with a suitcase, and her father looked worried AF that his own daughter about to ruin his gold-digging ass. After she tells him that Linda died, she advises him against calling and checking in with Linda's family because they're having a hard time coping and he didn't leave on the best terms. Whitney offers her condolences, and Joanna explains that Linda fell down the stairs and her death was the reason why she wasn't able to attend their wedding. Sure, Jan. Whitney offers that Joanna stay with them, welcoming and accepting her as part of her family. Michael and Whitney then introduce Joanna to Whitney's sons, Brian and Eric, and their friend Dante. Brian says people call him BK, like Burger King. Joanna admires their big-ass house. Then Joanna picks up a covered vase, and Whitney immediately takes it from her, saying it's her mother's Thanos snap. She says no one touches the urn. Later that night, Michael apologizes to Whitney for Joanna's unannounced arrival, but Whitney tells him that she's his daughter and they're now a family. The next day, Brian comes in with a tank top and licking his lips. Is this gonna be a "what you doing, step bro" movie? He sees Joanna's family photo and asks about her mom Chantal, prompting Joanna to share that Chantal died after getting hit by a drunk driver. Y'all, look at her paintbrush. There ain't even paint on it. Later, Brian asks if Dante can stay the night. Is he a fruit roll-up? Then, Whitney explains to Joanna that she's preparing samples for her pitch meeting with Walmart executives, which can result in a worldwide distribution of her products if it goes well. Joanna's fake ass compliments Whitney for being an inspiration. The next day, Whitney finds her mother's soil spilled on the floor, prompting her to become emotional. As Whitney tries to save most of her mother's ashes, everybody runs to her, and Joanna asks if she can help. Later that night, Whitney learns from Eric that Joanna is the culprit and expresses to Michael that it's a bit troubling that Joanna acted innocent before confessing. Michael convinces her that Joanna might have been scared to admit her fault. Michael shares that 5 years ago, he drank heavily to cope with Chantal's death, and he would pass out at hotels for days, leaving a then 12-year-old Joanna at home alone by herself. Joanna was then given to her grandmother, but he hopes to not be a deadbeat now. At a girls' day, Whitney's friends warn her about how there are more red flags than a communist party, especially after what she went through with her first husband, James. Although Whitney's dumb ass chooses to ignore it, she worries about Joanna's mental state. Cassandra suggests making Terrence run a background check on Joanna, but Whitney dismisses the idea because she dumb. The next morning, we now see why she dumb. Her man's as fine as hell, all shirtless. At work, Whitney meets with the Walmart executives for her cosmetics line pitch. She demos her products on 2 models, who both end up experiencing the makeup eating them alive, like how my denture-wearing ex used to eat me. She returns home feeling defeated, tearfully telling Michael that the deal fell through. Later, scary music plays whenever Joanna enters the room. The eyes are really the nipples of the face. The next day, Joanna sneaks into Whitney's room and goes through her stuff. She finds Whitney's fluvoxamine pills, which she takes every day. Later that night, someone sneaks into Whitney's room and switches the pills with something else. Come on, we all know it's Miss Girl Joanna. Whitney and Joanna bond at a nail spa for their girls' day. Suddenly, Whitney feels tired and dizzy, prompting Whitney to ask Joanna to drive them home since she can't. Because of this, Michael decides to cancel his business trip to take care of Whitney, but Whitney convinces him to go, saying it's an opportunity for her and Joanna to bond, and Joanna and the boys will be around to take care of her. One night, Eric catches Joanna going through Whitney's bag and taking her credit card. He has become suspicious of her because someone in the movie has to be the smart one. Joanna warns him to be careful of what he accuses her of and threatens him to keep his ass shut if he wants Whitney to remain unharmed. While Michael and Whitney are asleep, Joanna sneaks into their room and takes Whitney's clothes and shoes. Dressed as Whitney, Joanna heads to a hardware store to buy items such as a match, rope, and gasoline using Whitney's card. On the phone asking about her model's medical bills, Whitney realizes that her credit card is missing. Joanna asks her sons if they've seen it. Then she asks Joanna, but Joanna gets sassy AF. Taken aback by Joanna's response, Whitney tells her to watch her mouth in her house, little girl.
I've been around 30 years, little
That's
girl.
fine.
And Michael comes down and intervenes. Joanna tells him that Whitney accused her of theft. He gives Whitney her credit card, saying she left it on the dresser, prompting Joanna to scoff and walk out. After all three kids leave, Whitney explains to Michael what happened and tells him to talk to Joanna about her stank-ass behavior. He tells her that he will and asks her to be more patient since Joanna just lost Grandma Medea. Later that night on the roof, Joanna makes 12-year-old Eric drink a can of beer, which she has drugged, causing Eric to fall unconscious. Just as she is about to throw him off the roof, Michael emerges below, saving the sleepwalking Whitney from falling into the pool, prompting her to put Eric back down. After Michael leaves for his 2-week business trip, Whitney receives a call from Kevin, a chemist from Quick Chem Labs, where he tested her makeup products and found high concentration of sodium hydroxide or lye, which is a highly toxic substance. Whitney suspects Joanna and searches everywhere, but finds nothing. Joanna scares her with her big old boobs. I honestly don't know why they do the jump scare sounds all the time. Whitney tells Joanna about a substance found in her makeup, and Joanna says to be careful about what she leaves lying around. Oh, this girl thinks she's clever. Changing her mind, Whitney visits Cassandra to ask Terrence to run a background check on Joanna for her. She explains that she thinks Joanna is the one sabotaging her, citing Joanna's behavior during the makeup and credit card incidents. After Brian and Dante play video games in Brian's room, Dante shares that he and Joanna have been texting and shows him a photo she sent him. Homegirl a nasty freak. Dante tells Brian he's going to go pee, but instead of going to the bathroom, he goes to Joanna's room. He finds her underwear, which probably smells something fierce. He finds her diary. Unfortunately, before he can tell Brian about her diary's appalling contents, Joanna strikes him in the head, resulting in his death. Y'all, the way he looks silly with his dead self. Using Dante's phone, Joanna, as Dante, texts Brian that he needs to go home urgently because his mom needs him. She then takes the boys to play basketball at a park, where Joanna uses her mad muscles to dispose of Dante's body. On a call, Cassandra and Terrence inform Whitney that Joanna's real name is Maggie Dillon, but other than that, both Joanna and Michael's records have nothing alarming. When Whitney calls Michael to confront him about the name change, the shocked Michael apologizes for keeping it a secret. He shares that around the time he was having alcohol problems, he dated a woman named Heather, ended up mentally and physically abusing Joanna. Heather went to jail, and Joanna went to live with her grandparents, who had Joanna's name changed as a safety precaution when Heather got out. Deadass Whitney, yo ass better get Michael and Joanna out your life now, especially since you got a prenup anyway. Whitney tells him Joanna is sabotaging her, citing the urn, Walmart pitch, and lie incidents. But Michael defends Joanna as there is no concrete proof and asks that they work it out as a family. The next day, Whitney stops Joanna from taking Brian and Eric to the movies, as she doesn't think it's a good idea to take them out without her or Michael present. Joanna mocks her, saying it's hypocritical for her to say that they'll be unsafe with her when it's Whitney who almost hurt herself from sleepwalking, blaming her pills for it. Whitney warns her to watch her damn mouth, saying they'll discuss her behavior when Michael returns, and calls her Maggie, gagging Maggie. Later that night, Joanna informs Brian that she's going to look for a place to stay while Michael is out of town to not cause further trouble. Thinking that she shouldn't leave, he promises to talk to Whitney about her. Before she leaves, Brian says Joanna looks pretty. This boy Brian really falling for stepsis. There ain't much going on between his head and too much going on between his legs. Shortly after taking her pills, Whitney passes out on her bed. Meanwhile, Joanna takes the blade out of her razor. Joanna basically seduces Brian by kissing him on the cheek. She reminds Brian about talking to Whitney, so he goes to talk to Whitney. I'm surprised homeboy wasn't afraid of standing up and revealing himself. In Whitney's room, Brian finds her unconscious with her wrists slit and bloody. Joanna and Eric come, following Brian's screams, and they call 911. At the hospital, Brian tells the cop that Whitney has suffered depression before, but has never tried taking her life. Cassandra and Terrence arrive, and the doctor informs the family that Whitney is stable, but she needs to stay for a few days for more tests as a precaution. Whitney asks for Cassandra and tells her that she didn't try to take her life, and the last thing she remembers is taking her medicine. Suspecting that Joanna might have harmed her, she asks Cassandra to take her sons with her and not let the boys near that fake-ass hoe. Following Whitney's request, Cassandra takes the boys with her and leaves Joanna to live alone in the house. The doctor soon informs Whitney that her toxicology report reveals that she has cocaine, along with her prescribed medication. The confused Whitney tells him that she has never taken drugs. Because of this, the cop informs Whitney that her case has been passed on to social services, prompting a horrified Whitney to contest that she is a good mother. She tells the cop that Joanna did it, but he says that Joanna has given him a heads up that she might blame her, and he asks about her sleepwalking incident. At Cassandra's house, Brian and Eric watch the TV news report about Dante. When the reporter says that Dante's body was discovered in a local park, a weeping Eric tells Brian that it's the same park Joanna took them to, then she disappeared for around 15 minutes before coming back. He adds that the last time Dante was seen was at their house. Mr. BK is in denial and doesn't think his pretty stepsis could kill his bestie. Overhearing this, Cassandra calls Terrence, who says that although he wants to, they don't have evidence to bring Joanna in for questioning, and they can't question her without Michael or Whitney present. Cassandra informs Whitney all about Dante's death. She shows Chantal's case file that she got from Terrence, saying that contrary to Michael's story that Chantal was hit by a drunk driver, the report reveals that Chantal is the one inebriated, having cocaine, temazepam, and diphenhydramine in her system too. Cassandra reminds Whitney that Michael has always lied. They deduce that Joanna might have messed with Whitney's pills. While Whitney calls Michael to inform him about what's going on, Cassandra heads to Whitney's house with Chantal's case file and a gun in her bag to take Whitney's pills so Terrence can scan it for fingerprints. Unfortunately, Joanna attacks Cassandra. Cassandra slaps her so hard, Joanna doesn't end up in a Tyler Perry movie because this is just as bad. The girls pull each other's lace fronts. Eventually, Joanna yeets her off the second-floor railings. She then reads Chantal's case file and shocked to find out the truth. When Terrence arrives at the house, Joanna knocks him unconscious and takes his gun. Damn, apparently homegirl is on steroids being able to beat everyone up. Whitney calls Cassandra, but Joanna answers her phone and makes her choose between coming to the house to meet her alone or Joanna harming her boys. When Whitney arrives, Joanna attacks and drugs her, saying she's more difficult than her Medea grandmother. As it turns out, Joanna pushed her poor granny down the stairs, and that's what Dante saw in her diary. Why her grandmother looked hella young. Black really don't crack. BRB. My white ass gonna go ahead and just book my burial plot for looking 60 at age 30. Joanna reveals that the plan is supposed to make it look like Whitney took her own life after she killed her family and burned their house down. Michael arrives as he turns out to be the mastermind, planning to kill Whitney and her sons so they'll inherit everything, and he was the one who switched out Whitney's medicine. Joanna reveals to a groggy Whitney that Michael targets wealthy old women for their money. The shade. When Michael calls her Maggie, Joanna reveals that they changed her name a couple of years ago to prevent the police from catching on to what Michael was doing. Michael is annoyed that the boys need to die because they won't inherit shit. The two argue. He tells Joanna that he really can't trust her and asks for the gun. Joanna brings out Chantal's case file, revealing to Whitney that Michael said he chose Heather to be his first girlfriend after Chantal and his first victim because she was the drunk driver who hit Chantal. She then hysterically confronts Michael about the file, stating the complete opposite of what he told her. Chantal was the one under the influence and hit Heather. Since Chantal's toxicology report reveals that her system has Michael's drug cocktail, Joanna deduces that Michael killed Joanna's mom. Joanna drugs him, but he tries to fight back. And as they struggle for the gun, Whitney, who is slowly regaining consciousness, takes Cassandra's gun and shoots Michael. The cops later arrive and an officer informs Whitney, Cassandra, and Terrence, who have fully regained consciousness, that Joanna has been rushed to a nearby hospital and is being watched, but Michael has unfortunately escaped. That explanation of the mom's death was some convoluted shite. I've seen worse on Tubi, so I will give this movie a C-. What did you guys think of this one? A twist, even though most of it seemed quite predictable. I expect a sequel.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.